Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a source stack, in this case, the stunning narrative of Walter Mosley's novel, The Last Days of Ptolemy Grey, and just dissect it until you are truly deeply informed.
And we are diving headfirst into this one. It's a story about a man, nearing the century mark, living in this complete fog of memory loss. His life is just a monument to confusion and, frankly, betrayal.
But for a brief, terrifying window, he's granted this total burning clarity.
Yeah, a clarity that comes at a huge cost.
And that window, bought through what is, a literal devil's bargain, is really the central engine of our discussion today. Our mission is to trace Ptolemy's arc. We want to go from his state of total vulnerability and chaos to one of sharp, ruthless, and necessary purpose.
We want to understand the intricate, almost tragic logic behind his final decisive actions, and what it truly costs a person to reclaim their agency at the very, very end of life.
It's a powerful exploration of legacy, family, and the ultimate price paid for justice.
Yeah, and we have to start with Ptolemy Grey himself. The way he's first presented to us is just as a very, very old black man who is defined really by this profound, pervasive sense of loss.
Okay, let's unpack this labyrinth of forgetfulness, because Ptolemy's initial state is, it's harrowing.
It really is. His mind isn't empty, which is the key thing. It's just completely inaccessible.
The novel gives us that incredible metaphor. His thoughts and memories are locked on the other side of a closed door?
Exactly. And even though he can't get to them, they're constantly babbling and muttering, so it creates this internal cacophony, a noise he can't understand.
So it's a complete sensory overload, but without any corresponding meaning.
He's living in this perpetual present tense, constantly reacting to noises and fragments he just can't place.
And because of that, time is it's utterly fractured for him. We learned that right away. The physical clock in his apartment is permanently stuck.
At 4.15, always 4.15.
And his attempt to compensate for this broken timeline, is so heartbreakingly logical in his own brokenness.
It is. He tries to figure out when Hilly, his great-grandnephew, will arrive.
Right. By taking that one fixed point, he has 4.15 and adding 45 minutes to it.
It shows a mind that is just desperately trying to impose some kind of order on a system, standard timekeeping, that has completely abandoned him.
And his physical reality is just as taxing.
Oh, yeah. Every single movement is a chore. We learn specifically that just standing up causes him pain in 3 distinct, predictable spots.
His elbow, his knee, and his ankle.
And he counts them internally. 1, 2, 3 places. It's like this rigid, painful structure is the only thing he can reliably count on in his physical world.
That physical suffering is completely mirrored by his environment, isn't it?
Absolutely. His one-bedroom apartment is described as the detritus of a lifetime.
And it's not just clutter. It feels more like archaeological wreckage.
That's a good way to put it. Piles of boxes, old clothes, tools. And it's largely accumulated after his second wife, Sensia, began hoarding before her own death.
So he's literally buried beneath the weight of a past that he can no longer access.
That image of the apartment is so crucial because it symbolizes the chaos of his interior life. But it also, it explains his isolation. He lives in this confined, suffocating space.
Which leads to what is, for me, the most shocking detail about his living conditions.
The stopped-up toilet.
The toilet. It's this detail that represents the total loss of basic human dignity.
It really does. He confesses to using a lard can for number 1.
And pouring it down the sink every night. And he has this rationalization for it.
It all go down the same pipes anyway.
That rationalization, it's a defense mechanism, isn't it? It's him fighting against this overwhelming shame, showing just how far his standards had been lowered by pure necessity and neglect.
Exactly. And for anything more substantial, he has to rely on his caretaker taking him out to Frank's coffee shop.
The stench must have been just pervasive.
Oh, completely. We learn later that Hilly, his great-grandnephew, has to pull his hood up over his nose when he enters the apartment.
So this environment, this filth, created by neglect and hoarding, it becomes a perfect incubator for exploitation.
It does. And that brings us to the specific vultures that are circling Ptolemy.
And you see both external and internal threats. The external one is Melinda Hogarth.
Right. She's a dark-skinned 50-year-old drug addict, and she has targeted Ptolemy repeatedly.
She initially robbed his coffee can bank after knocking him down, but it didn't even stop there.
No, she had the audacity to rob him again in broad daylight on St. Peter's Avenue.
Her violence is the reason he's basically paralyzed by fear. He won't leave the apartment without Reggie, his great-nephew.
But Reggie, who is the one source of legitimate protection and care in his life, is noticeably absent.
He's been gone for a week and a half by Ptolemy's, confused reckoning.
And in Reggie's place steps the internal threat. And you could argue, the more dangerous threat, Hilly Brown.
Hilly is just the definition of casual betrayal. He's Reggie's great-grandnephew, and he's supposedly there to look after Ptolemy.
But his actions are purely self-serving. He knows Ptolemy is vulnerable, and he systematically, almost casually, steals his city retirement money.
The detail about the checks is so important for showing Ptolemy's internal struggle. That fight between his dementia and these fleeting moments of lucidity.
It is. He habitually saved 3 city retirement checks, each for $211.41, and he would cash one every 3 weeks.
And he had a ritual, right? He would count them 3 times under the electric iron to make sure they were all there.
Yes, and even in his deepest confusion, he knew. He knew Hilly was only giving him the money for one check while pocketing the other 2.
And that moment where he's holding onto that tiny kernel of knowledge I'm being stolen from while being too frail or too confused to stop it, that just defines his initial tragedy.
It does. Hilly's apathy is so complete. He ignores the filth, he prioritizes the theft, and he never, ever asks the one fundamental question.
The question of genuine human care.
Right. And that total absence of care sets the stage perfectly for the arrival of the person who will be the actual catalyst for change. Robyn Small.
Okay, here is where the whole narrative just pivots dramatically. Section 2, the arrival of Robyn, the new guardian.
She's a young woman sent by Nisi, who's Hilly's mother, and she's only there because Hilly complained that Ptolemy wouldn't let him in.
Because Ptolemy, even in his fog, instinctively knew Hilly was a thief. He knew something was wrong.
And Robyn, from the very first moment, distinguishes herself by doing the one thing Hilly never did.
She asks, "Are you all right in there?"
That's it, that simple human question. It instantly wins Ptolemy's trust. It recognizes his humanity, his dignity, which Hilly's self-serving presence just completely ignored.
Ptolemy even realizes it, right? He thinks to himself that Hilly had never asked how he was.
Never. And so the restoration of his dignity begins. It begins with this clean sweep.
It's a process of cleansing the environment that, it so clearly parallels the psychological cleansing that's about to happen.
And she addresses the fundamental point of shame first, the bathroom. She fixes the toilet by just clearing it out and turning on the water. It can flush for the first time in years.
The change is instantaneous. It's almost miraculous for him.
Then comes the light. She goes through the apartment and she installs new light bulbs in all 7 sockets. The result is just transformative.
The room becomes so white in there that it made him laugh.
The chaos is illuminated, literally and symbolically. The darkness of his confusion and his shame is chased away by this bright white light of care.
But her cleaning, it goes beyond just utility. It becomes a kind of excavation of his identity.
Yeah, under the sink, amidst all that accumulated debris, Robyn finds a water-stained, crumbling sepia photograph.
And it's a picture of Ptolemy's mother holding him as a skinny, frowning little boy.
This is such a powerful moment of identity recovery. This photograph is Ptolemy's physical past, water-stained, crumbling, almost lost forever to this environment of neglect.
And Robyn, she recognizes its irreplaceable nature. She pledges to take it to a drugstore to make a print. She's not just cleaning his house.
No, she's recovering and preserving his lost self.
She even tackles his unusual sleeping arrangement. Ptolemy had retreated from the bed, which he saw as Sensia's untouchable memorial.
He slept instead under the oak table, on a thin mattress, trying to avoid the rats and roaches.
Robyn is, understandably repulsed. She asks about it, and Ptolemy connects her name to the robins his father wouldn't let him feed when he was a child.
That name connection, that shared bit of natural history, it cements their bond even further.
But the narrative makes it very clear that Robyn is not merely some gentle saint.
Not at all. She is a fierce, almost primal protector, and we see this immediately when they venture out to buy cleaning supplies.
Which is a huge step for Ptolemy. He's terrified to leave, and they spend $73 of his money, which is this huge act of trust in his newfound financial agency.
And then, right on cue, Melinda Hogarth, the previous mugger, attacks. She spots Ptolemy, calls him Pete, and just barrels toward them like a freight train.
She's intending to exploit him again.
But Robyn's reaction is explosive. It's shocking. She grabs the bag with the electric fans they just bought and uses it as a blunt weapon.
She slams Melinda in the forehead 4 times, shattering the fans in the process.
And when Melinda is momentarily stunned, Robyn pulls out a 6-inch knife.
This is where the dialogue just shifts entirely. She threatens Melinda, and she calls her Linda, refusing her the dignity of her full name.
And unleashes this brutal, visceral threat. She says she will cut her throat or cut her titties right off if she ever messes with Ptolemy again.
This extreme violence is just a defining characteristic of Robyn.
It is, and Ptolemy's reaction to it perfectly captures the duality of her role. At first he's terrified. He sees her as a demon.
But then she immediately transforms back into the sweet girl he knows. And he feels happy.
Not just because he's safe, but because he realizes in that moment that he can now stand on the street without being assaulted. The threat of violence, wielded by his savior, has restored his freedom.
And that freedom is immediately cemented with a symbolic gift.
Using his new bank card, Ptolemy buys Robyn a white wooden bed couch with pink-handled drawers.
It's a reciprocal act, isn't it? She cleaned his living space, so he gives her a dedicated, clean space of her own. It secures her place not just as a caretaker, but as family.
And this deep, complex bond with Robyn is then immediately contrasted with an entirely different kind of profound connection.
The moment of trust he shares with Shirley Ring.
Shirley Ring, the woman in blue jeans with cloudy amber eyes, she approached him at the bank asking for just $5 more for her phone bill.
And this simple interaction, which was only possible because Hilly was temporarily gone, it becomes something monumental.
The detail of the emerald ring is pure narrative genius. She offers Ptolemy a cabochon emerald ring as collateral for a mere $10 loan.
But this isn't just any piece of jewelry.
No, it was inherited from a great-grandmother who stole it from a former master back in 1865. It's an heirloom that is rooted in generations of resistance and survival.
And for Ptolemy, this is an overwhelming moment of trust. The sources say that this small act of faith ignites a powerful feeling of glee and delight in his chest.
A feeling so strong it was strong enough to kill.
Why? Why that strong?
Because a stranger saw his decency, a stranger saw his potential and placed this profound faith in him when no one else would.
He recognizes the ring's priceless history and its value immediately.
Right. So he gives her the $10, but then he gives the emerald back to her as a gift. And the significance here is twofold. First, he feels valued. And second, in that moment of elation, his mind clarifies just enough for him to remember her unique name perfectly.
He spells it out. Shirley W-R-I-N-G.
That flash of sharp memory, focusing on a name, it signals that his mind is fighting his way back to the surface.
It's a precursor, isn't it? To the total clarity he now craves. He has a reason to live, his dignity is restored, his new family is protected, and he has this burning memory of a true human connection.
But to fulfill the debts of his past and to secure his legacy, he needs more than just these fleeting moments. He needs total cognitive restoration.
And that, of course, brings us to the ultimate moral conflict of the story, the devil's medicine.
The stage is set for the Faustian pact at the story's core. The contact comes through a social worker, Antoine Church.
Right. He reaches out after Reggie's initial application for aid, and Church introduces Ptolemy to the possibility of regaining his memory, but at a catastrophic cost.
That cost is Dr. Robyn. Ptolemy immediately identifies him as the devil, or Satan's agent, and the description fits. Beady green eyes, operating an illegal trial-and-mistake medicine program.
And this is not a cure. We have to be clear on that. It's a temporary neurological boost.
The science behind it is chillingly pragmatic. The drug is highly dangerous, it's short-acting, and it only gets better, quote, after the subject dies.
So the entire goal of Dr. Robyn's work is just pure scientific data collection.
Exactly. The subjects are guinea pigs. The clarity they gain is merely a byproduct of a process that's designed to maximize scientific learning, regardless of the patient's long-term health.
It is a dark bargain only available to the marginalized and the desperate, but Ptolemy accepts it. He accepts it without hesitation.
Because, as he says, he is gonna die anyways. He sees this finite window of clarity as a final tool.
A tool to achieve three critical goals. Find his treasure, remember, W-R-I-N-G, and tellingly perform the simple, previously impossible act of turning on the television by himself.
That third goal, turning on the TV, is so profoundly meaningful. It symbolizes reclaiming the basic agency that his dementia stole from him.
By accepting the drug, he's choosing a painful, purposeful death over a slow, confused decay.
He's choosing fire over rust.
And the transformation is immediate and it's visceral. The medicine causes an internal fire.
He experiences an intense fever. He describes the sensation of burning up and singing in my veins and feeling as if his head is literally on fire.
But in that fever, he gains total, pristine mental clarity.
The locked door of his mind isn't just opened, it's blown off its hinges. He can now not only string words together eloquently, he can recall sharp, complex events from 80 years prior.
And the source gives a specific example, right? He remembers Billy Knight killing Sergeant Preston Toombs in Paris during World War II, and the subsequent betrayal by Colonel Riley.
Yes, and let's pause there for a second. Why is that specific memory so important? It's not some tender childhood moment.
No, it's a moment of wartime violence and betrayal.
It's crucial because his mind isn't just returning simple facts, it's returning high-stakes trauma and the memory of moral conflict. His mind is no longer a confusing jumble of radio and television sounds, it's a sharp reservoir of actionable history.
He gains the specific knowledge of past wrongs and complex ethical decisions that were made under duress. This memory restoration is a warrior's clarity.
Exactly, and we see him physically embodying this newfound clarity. He performs the symbolic act, what the book calls the shroud removed.
He finds an old steel ice hook, a relic from his job delivering ice with Peter Brock, the minister's son, and he uses it to violently rip the large gray tarp off the contents of Sensia's abandoned bedroom.
He recognizes the symbolic weight of that tarp. He consciously calls it the pall in my mind, the cover that buried his grief, his purpose, in the chaos of Sensia's death.
And as he pulls it off, the plastic sheet hisses like lizard skin, raising this mist of dust.
This act is the physical, tangible removal of the psychological burden that had held him prisoner for years. He has literally excavated his mission.
And with his mind clear and the obstacles cleared away, he prepares for action. Regaining agency isn't just about memory for him.
No, it's about preparation for war. This clarity leads him to acquire and then clean a .25 caliber pistol.
The detail about the bullets is almost darkly humorous. Hilly, the betrayer, had unknowingly hidden the bullets with some salted peanuts.
And Ptolemy, realizing the gun must be clean to be reliable, meticulously cleans it, and it makes him feel like a soldier at war again. He has transitioned from a vulnerable, exploited victim to a man focused purely on executing his final mission.
And that mission has two parts: vengeance and legacy. Since Dr. Robyn predicted he had only 2 weeks after that final injection, Ptolemy knew he had to act fast.
The first priority was justice for Reggie, the man who was like a son to him.
So, the path to vengeance. He plots it with a clinical precision that is totally devoid of the confusion that defined his previous state.
First, he confirms his suspicions. He talks to Reggie's friend, Billy Strong. And the motive for Reggie's murder becomes clear. It's domestic.
Reggie was killed by a drive-by 8 weeks ago at 4 p.m. And it was because he was planning to move his wife, Nina, and their children, Arthur and Letitia, to San Diego.
Specifically to get them away from Nina's controlling boyfriend, Alfred.
So the motive is possessiveness. The target is Alfred. And Ptolemy uses his clarity to set the trap.
Using the very person who betrayed him, Hilly. He calls Hilly and has him lure Alfred to the apartment using the bait that would appeal most to a calculating killer.
Reggie's gold.
Exactly. And Alfred, arrogant and self-assured, arrives. He's wearing a fuchsia-colored shirt and this conspicuous Georgie medallion.
Ptolemy doesn't immediately use force, does he? He uses psychological combat. He engages Alfred in conversation and forces a confession.
He strips Alfred of his confidence. Alfred, cornered, first tries to rationalize the violence. He says Reggie was going to take her away. Nina's mine.
But under Ptolemy's unwavering stare, he finally cracks.
I killed the motherfucker. All right, now where is the gold?
And that confession, secured by Ptolemy's intellect, is the moment justice is served.
Ptolemy then uses the pistol. It jerked twice in his old hand. Alfred, stunned, staggers out into the street, collapses, and later dies at the hospital.
He's achieved vengeance for Reggie. He's ensured the man who threatened his family's future can never touch them again.
But his mission wasn't solely defined by retribution, was it? It was also profoundly shaped by honoring a debt dating back to his childhood.
The legacy of his mentor, Coydog McCann. This is really the heart of Ptolemy's purpose.
Coydog McCann, or Uncle Coy, who called Ptolemy Lil P, he taught Ptolemy the ABCs, taught him to read and write by stealing paper from the country store.
He wasn't just a mentor. He was a revolutionary figure in Ptolemy's young life.
And his death was a deliberate sacrifice. Coydog was lynched after robbing Jersey Mannheim, a wealthy white man who essentially enslaved the black community through perpetual debt.
And before the robbery, Coydog poured laudanum into Mannheim's gin.
Right, ensuring that Mannheim was paralyzed during the theft. He witnessed the loss of his treasure but was completely unable to intervene.
And the treasure, these gold coins, doubloons, it wasn't stolen for personal wealth.
Not at all. Coydog showed Lil P where they were hidden, under a large rock in the cave behind Mourner's Falls. And his instruction was explicit. Ptolemy must retrieve it later to make a difference for poor black folks.
So Coydog chose his fate, the hanging and burning. He saw it as a necessary sacrifice to show that resistance was possible, and that the resources should belong to the community, not the oppressor.
And Ptolemy, now finally clear-headed, he understands and accepts this mission. He's acting on a promise he made maybe 80 years earlier.
His next step is securing the practical mechanism for this legacy, the formal trust.
He immediately goes to see Moishe Abramovitz, the lawyer who's the son of Abe Abramovitz, to make Robyn his heir. And he places $1,000 in crisp $100 bills on the table as a down payment.
This is a very calculated move. He's not just trusting Robyn, he's giving her the formal, legal means to manage the treasure.
But he knows. He knows the Blood family will challenge this arrangement.
Of course. Robyn is not blood, and they will immediately assume she manipulated this frail old man for his money.
So Ptolemy takes extraordinary measures to establish evidence of sound mind. He goes to see a Chinese psychiatrist, Nora Chin.
And he records their conversation. Not to record what they discussed, but to prove his cognitive abilities were fully restored.
And he provides the definitive, unchallengeable proof by referencing minute, hidden details of Moishe's father's painting, a study of darkness and light.
That painting detail is just fascinating. He explains to the psychiatrist and the lawyer that Abe Abramovitz, the painter, had originally focused on the naked goddess in the foreground, but eventually his gaze shifted to the background.
And Ptolemy's sharp mind recalls every single background element: the blind young woman, the watchmaker with no hands, and the dog headed down a dark alley where a woman's face was mysteriously glowing.
That level of detail, that recollection of hidden, almost subconscious artistic elements is conclusive proof. His mind is working not just normally, but brilliantly.
The doctor and the lawyer are completely convinced. This protects Robyn, who then takes the gold coins, the doubloons Coydog stole, and deposits them in a safe deposit box, securing the legacy.
And Ptolemy dictates his plan for the family distribution. The funds are earmarked for Reggie's children, Arthur and Letitia, and for Nisi.
And he promises Nisi $800 a month, but it comes with a strict condition. She must keep the children and never send them back to Nina, Reggie's irresponsible widow.
Ensuring the kids are permanently shielded from Alfred's influence, even though Alfred is now dead.
Ptolemy has used his last remaining cognitive resource not for comfort, but to meticulously rearrange the future of his entire extended family. He's fulfilling a lifetime's worth of obligations in a 2-week span.
It's just a stunning display of strategic altruism.
But before the fire finally takes him, he experiences a complex series of profound personal relationships. And that leads us to Section 5, love, loss, and the final fall.
We have to analyze the complexity of his second marriage to Cynthia Howard.
Yeah, she was 20 years younger than him, and he loved her unconditionally, despite her serial infidelity.
She was with his friend Ivan, and later a teacher, Mrs. Gladys Pine, whose husband later committed suicide. This was a messy, painful love.
He tried to escape it once. He went to Riverside to drink Sour Mash whiskey after she discovered his own brief affair with Major's wife, Leanne.
But Cynthia tracked him down. She retrieved him, telling him explicitly that she needed him to stay alive.
Their love was a necessary codependency, rooted in mutual turmoil. The source states that Ptolemy couldn't bring himself to leave her or even to kill her, despite purchasing a .25 caliber pistol after one of her weekends away.
The chaos of their love was, for many years, the only thing tethering him to the world.
And his final, clean love for Robyn is equally complex, but far less destructive. He calls her his angel and his savior.
He tells her his love makes his heart hurt and laugh. It's this mixture of profound joy and deep protective concern.
He's also openly struggling with his physical attraction to her. He confesses that he doesn't like to look at your legs.
This acknowledgement of his old man's desires, coupled with his commitment to maintaining his role as a protector and a father figure, shows his clarity extends to his own moral and emotional boundaries.
He handles this attraction with a dignity and an honesty that his life with Cynthia really lacked.
And then there's the tender yet tragic conclusion to his relationship with Shirley Ring, the woman of the Emerald Ring.
He learns more of her history, and it connects her past struggle to his own. Shirley's history is rooted in social and political struggle. She was born in Tulsa and later lived for 11 years on a rich man's estate in Santa Barbara because the owner was a communist.
And her father was killed after moving to LA to organize workers.
This just deepens the resonance of her giving him the ring. It's an object that is tied to resistance, and now it's being entrusted to a man who is performing his own final act of resistance.
Shirley returns the emerald ring, the original collateral, claiming it's a gift for his recovery, and she tells him he was like a real man to me for his decency and his trust.
Ptolemy accepts the ring. He asks her to be his friend for the rest of his life, and they share a kiss.
It's described as feeling the embrace he'd always run after.
Unlike the turbulent, dramatic love of Sensia, this connection with Shirley is one of pure, innocent human validation and trust. It provides him a final, peaceful connection to the world before his ultimate withdrawal.
But the clock, though it was fixed, is ticking down rapidly. Dr. Robyn predicted he had just 2 weeks after that final, concentrated injection.
And Ptolemy is acutely aware that the internal fire of the drug is draining his physical strength. He achieves a profound final peace through a final dream.
He dreams of the burning house and Maud Petite, his friend who died in the tar paper house fire when he was just 5 years old.
And that trauma, which he conflated with every siren he heard for decades, was the source of his deepest, oldest emotional torment.
In the dream, he uses the very nature of his impending death, that internal medicinal fever, to finally achieve salvation.
He reaches into the fire that is raging in his breast and he rescues Maud. He places her on a high shelf and extinguishes the flames.
And this act brings him crazy with joy. After 86 years of psychological torment, he had finally saved his first love by swallowing the flames that consumed her.
He used the poison not just for vengeance and legacy, but for ultimate personal, emotional closure.
His final actions are all dedicated to preparing Robyn for the future. He gives his last wishes, asking her to take care of Arthur and Letitia and to manage the legacy.
And then he asks her to move out for 2 days so he can be alone for his final mission, emphasizing that crucial philosophical line, where you fall matters.
He wants to die on his own terms, in the home he finally cleaned and reclaimed, having fulfilled every single debt and obligation.
And in his final delirium, he receives the ultimate validation.
He has a last conversation with the memory of Coy Dog. And Coy Dog is now smiling and nodding. He's recognizing that Ptolemy has fully repaid the debt of the gold and fulfilled his life's ultimate purpose by establishing the legacy for the next generation.
The student has finally surpassed the mentor by completing the long-delayed revolution.
So the synthesis of the narrative, it really is centered on fire, isn't it?
It is. Ptolemy's life was bracketed by 2 defining fires: the external, tragic fire that took Maud Petite, and the internal, medicinal fever that restored his mind and his soul.
And his final clarity, which was purchased through this highly dangerous devil's bargain, was used entirely selflessly.
He traded the last 2 weeks of his life and his legal innocence to resolve a debt to the past, fulfill Coy Dog's dream, secure justice for Reggie, and establish a thriving future for Robyn and Reggie's children.
He found his soul by clinging to love and trust, even while committing a necessary act of violence.
What's remarkable is the sheer scale of agency he reclaimed. The deepest understanding of Ptolemy's sharpest mind. It wasn't found in safety or ease. It was found in embracing the danger and the conflict that he had spent a lifetime avoiding.
He only became his truest self when he accepted the ultimate cost of clarity and mortality. He used his last moments of life to ensure he was remembered for his definitive actions, rather than pitied for his dementia or his exploitation.
And that leads us to the final, provocative thought that Ptolemy left with Robyn. Ain't nobody full dead until no one remember they name.
So given the dramatic choices he made, the murder of Alfred, the complex will, the use of that ancient gold, which form of immortality is the most lasting and true.
Is it achieved through the formal documentation of a will and the trust that provides financial stability for Arthur and Letitia?
Or is it achieved through the visceral, emotional acts of vengeance and love taken just before the end, ensuring that the next generation remembers the strength and clarity of Ptolemy Grey's final courageous choice? That is the legacy you have to reckon with.